Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. I'm just getting everything set on going Facebook Live. So just give me a moment. Welcome. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day. And I'm going to open up the chat, of course. In about 1 minute, we'll start. And that will give you an opportunity to share your resources, share your contacts. I just suggest you wait maybe about a minute or so, because if someone enters in late, they can't see the chat until that is posted. All right. All right. All right, so welcome everyone to our November general meeting. My name is Deborah Stout. I'm the Executive Director of the Fullerton Collaborative, and we are so honored that you were able to join us today. And as we discuss an important topic, as I'm making my way, seeing everybody here on the screen, I just wanted to highlight we are streaming this live on our Facebook page. So if there are background or things that you are concerned about, just be aware of that. It's going to be a speaker view, so it will be viewed just by the individual that is speaking. I just ask that you keep your microphone muted, and I will make sure that I'm keeping track on my end, but if you could just help me out with that. If there are questions that come up, please use the chat. And introduce yourselves in the chat, share your contact information as well, and we will utilize that as we're moving through this platform. And I hope everyone is well and that you are safe and taking care of yourself and your family at this time. I'm going to turn it over as I see that Leanna has joined us. She is the chair of the Fullerton Collaborative. And we also have other chairs that are on as well. And if you have interest in becoming a member or your interest in more about the collaborative, you are invited to reach out to myself, and I will put my contact information in there, and also any of the board that is presented. So we have Kevin and Lionel here, excellent. And I know that Helene's here. We have Bev and Barry joining us as well, and Jay. And so welcome everyone again. So Leanna, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Deborah, and thank you everybody for coming to our meeting today. It's so great to see everybody. So we are going to start. You know, our board, we've really, like I discussed at the last meeting, our board really has been working on what are our goals and objectives going from the end of 2020 into 2021, having to really kind of refocus our work that we're doing with the collaborative and wanting to do that. So we're making sure we're meeting the needs of our community right now, and really addressing some challenges that you feel like the clients in your organizations might be coming up to face this in the next few months. And a big thing that was discussed in our last board meeting is the challenges that a lot of families and businesses are going to have to face in the beginning of 2021, with a lot of the rent moratoriums becoming expired at the end of this year. So our board did agree that this was something that we wanted to communicate about and get educated in with, and use this meeting space for that. So you are able to take this information back to your organizations and hopefully use it to help some of your clients that might be faced with some of these concerns. So the theme of our meeting for this subject is the rent is still due, and what are the collective efforts that we're making together to help impact Fullerton and help our citizens with this. So our first speaker is Jennifer Baez Silva, and she's from the Public Law Center. So Jennifer, if you're here, I don't know if I see her.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I am here, and I am punting this over to Miss Ugochi Anabera, and we have a PowerPoint that I think she's going to present on her screen. So if
Good
you just
afternoon.
give us a minute.
It
Excellent.
looks like share screen has been disabled. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, I just
Okay.
put you on there. Excellent.
Great.
And
Thank you.
Jennifer, I just want to introduce you. You are an attorney at law, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, excellent. And help us pronounce Uguchi?
Oh, I will get there. Ugochi
Ugochi, thank
Anabera
you.
Nicholson. And so I was trying to figure out how to do this. Let's see, I got to download it, I think. Just give me 1 second. Sorry. Okay. All right. And then, thank you.
In the meantime, thank you everybody for posting anything that you would like to share in the chat.
There we go. So let's do slideshow from the beginning. Okay, there we go. Does everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So good afternoon. Thank you so much for having Jen and I present to this collaborative group. It's been an interesting year since COVID-19. We hope you guys are all safe and healthy. A lot of our clients, as you guys can imagine, were put into a complete tailspin due to this pandemic. There have been about the AB 3088 came forth. And so we'll go over kind of the landscape right now. Public Law Center, we're a pro bono law firm. We've been around almost 40 years. Our mission is to provide access to justice for low-income and vulnerable residents. We provide these services free of charge to qualifying Orange County residents, families, organizations, and small businesses. We work in our housing unit to preserve and create affordable housing opportunities in Orange County, prevent homelessness, and assist tenants who are being unfairly evicted or who are being subjected to substandard living conditions. And we provide a wide variety of areas in civil legal aid. We do not provide criminal defense services. Those services for indigent folks are provided through the Public Defender's Office or the alternate Public Defender's Office, because we do get calls from time to time from individuals that think we provide criminal law services, and we do not. Those are provided for people at the Public Defender's Office. We do work with them, to the extent that it engages with our work, but we don't provide criminal legal services. So what has changed? The COVID-19 pandemic has forever changed the landlord-tenant landscape. And we say that because prior to COVID-19, as I mentioned earlier, there were about 160,000 evictions annually. But because of COVID-19, a lot of our tenants were put in the precarious situation of being unable to pay rent, or the landlord had decided to end their tenancy for whatever reason. And now they're in a situation where they cannot find housing, or they have to quickly figure out how they're going to save their housing so that they're not at risk of eviction or risk of displacement or homelessness due to eviction. So over the course of these 9 months, I think it's been 9 or 10 months at least of this pandemic, advocates across the nation, including in the state of California, have gone to the courts, gone to the legislature to try to get protections in place to stem the tsunami of evictions that we anticipate are going to come forth once these protections are lifted. As I mentioned, we had a number of local protections in the city of Orange, in the county of Orange. Most of those protected individuals from eviction due to non-payment of rent, if they could present a tie between the non-payment and the lack of income due to COVID and document that before the landlord. And then we had a number of other protections for people who are in federally subsidized housing for them to prevent evictions during the pandemic and at least for 30 days after. That was the Federal CARES Act. Those protections, the moratorium is gone, but the 30-day notice is still in place. And then there are people who are in housing that is subsidized by a federal loan. And those individuals are still able to obtain the protections of eviction defense if their landlord received a forbearance on their federal loan, but their loan has to be federally subsidized in order for the tenant to reap the benefits of that forbearance. And it's only until the end of the year unless Congress extends it. So in the state of California, we have AB 3088. And then on September the 4th, the Centers for Disease Control, in response to, frankly, the doctors in this country responding to the public health crisis created by evictions, enacted the CDC orders, which is known as the CDC moratorium. So we've broken them up in these two pieces so that you understand the distinctive differences between the statewide protection known as AB 3088 and the CDC moratorium, which is known as the CDC moratorium. So first, starting with AB 3088, a brief summary. Under the law, the tenant who was unable to pay rent due to COVID from the periods of March to August 31st, 2020, is able to avoid eviction if they give their landlord a single declaration telling the landlord that they could not pay the rent. And the reason why they couldn't pay the rent was due to COVID. And so they can give their landlord a single document saying, I can't pay you rent due to COVID. Now, the landlord has to give an eviction notice of at least 15 court days if they want to try to move to evict the tenant, and then attach to that notice a declaration that the tenant can then return to the landlord and say, I can't pay the rent due to COVID. But for this period of time, March 1st, 2020 through August 31st, 2020, many of the tenants don't have that declaration handy. So it is perfectly sufficient for the tenant to have given a single declaration or a letter, something saying, I could not pay you the rent due to COVID. And then if their landlord seeks to evict them due to that rent period of March 1st, 2020 to August 31st, 2020, because the landlord has 1 year from the date that the rent became due to try to collect the rent in eviction court, the landlord can attach the note, must attach the declaration to it, and then the tenant can return that document and keep a copy. So if you're working with tenants who had rent obligations due from March 1, 2020 to August 31, 2020, and they were giving their landlords notifications that they could not pay the rent during that time, and it was because of COVID or income loss or having to take care of school-aged children at home because of the closure of the schools, work with them to get the documentation in place so that they can present that to the landlord or their landlord's attorneys and not be subjected to eviction court. Now, since we're in November, excuse me, any rent that is due September 1, 2020 through January 31st of 2021, a landlord is prohibited from evicting the tenant due to if the tenant can provide a declaration for each of the months between September and January that they cannot pay the rent due to COVID. And then they will be prohibited from evicting them in the month of January 2021 if the tenant, provides 25% of the rent that accrued between September 1 and January 2021. If the tenant only does the declarations from September to January and does not pay the 25% at the end of January, then on February 1st, that is the first time they can be hauled into court to answer to the eviction. Further, the landlord is required to inform the tenant of their rights, that they have this new law in place and it provides a bunch of procedural protections. Those are important because from the legal standpoint, they may be able to provide some defenses to the eviction if the landlord doesn't do any of these procedures that we've mentioned correctly. Evictions are a game of procedure. If the landlord fails to follow the procedure, they do not get unlawful detainer. And so that's the argument that is made in court to say that the landlord should have to do this all over again because they did not do it the right way the first time. I should also mention that regarding the rent, the 75% that remains due, the landlord can legally now sue for that in civil court, not eviction court, but that is as early as March the 1st, 2021. So with cities that have repayment plans in place, a number of them are in Orange County, at least 14 cities in the city of Orange County had repayment plans because they had eviction moratorium in place or eviction protections in place. Those must be completed by no later than March the 1st of 2022. So they have about a year to get those completed, and everybody has to be done by March 31st, 2022 with the repayment plans. So we talked about the landlord having to give a 15-day notice before seeking any rent due between the periods of March 1st, 2020 and January 31st, 2021. AB 3088 extends just cause eviction protections to all tenants until February 1st, 2021. In 2019, the legislature passed AB 1482. That has two components. The first component is a rent cap component under Civil Code Section 1947.12, and a just cause component under Civil Code Section 1946.2. The just cause component was extended to all tenants, regardless of tenancies, what type of tenancy that the tenant has. So there are some tenancies that do not get just cause protection, but everybody gets just cause protection because the state is trying to protect people during this pandemic. I think we talked about that. Yeah, we talked about those. Okay. So on September 4th, the CDC issued its moratorium or its eviction protections and basically said that there's no evictions right now until December 31st, 2020, provided that the tenant provide a declaration answering several questions under penalty of perjury that they cannot pay the rent. It's due to some financial loss, significant loss. They are low income, or they they have tried to seek for assistance from the government to help to pay the rent. They understand that they owe the rent and that they can't pay it now, but maybe can pay it in the future. So there's a number of things that the tenant will have to declare. We're happy to send the declarations in English and Spanish because they're in those threshold languages, as well as I think Tagalog as well for your clientele if you don't have access to the CDC declaration. So, however, there is a carve out for exceptions under the CDC rules to allow evictions to go forth, notwithstanding this pandemic. And that is for the following activities. If there's criminal activity on the property, if the tenant at risk of eviction is accused of threatening the health or safety of other residents, if the tenant is accused of damaging or posing significant risk to the property, or violating any applicable building or health and safety codes. We just had a national election recently, so advocates have been working on the ground nonstop to try to see about these extensions of these moratoriums or these protections, given that we are still within the first wave of the COVID pandemic. We hit 10 million cases today in the US, and I think 200-some-thousand people are dead in the United States. And so with this new administration on the horizon, we are hoping that the Congress and the United States government step in to provide protections to individuals during this pandemic who are at risk of losing their housing due to eviction. So the CDC does not block landlords from initiating the eviction proceedings, but covered tenants cannot be evicted until the expiration of the moratorium on December 31st, 2020. So we have seen a lot of evictions come forth. The CDC declaration, unlike the AB 3088, that has to be provided within the time frame of the 15 court days if the tenant gets a non-payment notice, for example, the CDC declaration can be provided for at any time, even in the eviction proceeding. So the tenant can give it to their landlord, keep a copy. It's important that tenants keep copies of what they are giving to their landlords, so that in the event that they are having to defend an eviction, they can present those copies to the court attached to their responsive pleadings, so that the court sees that they're trying to comply with the different rules, and they shouldn't be at risk of losing their housing because they have so complied. So in an eviction, the landlord is seeking two big things: possession, saying that I should be the one in possession, not the tenant, because they have violated some rule, i.e. they have not paid us the rent. So we gave them the notice, they still didn't pay it, they're in possession, we want possession. And they're also looking for the past due rent if non-payment is at issue, and damages for each day that the rent went unpaid after the eviction was given and expired, the notice. And then if they're not in non-payment, they're looking for the damages that are accruing every day that the rent has not been collected because they haven't been able to rent the property since the tenant's there. Costs of suit, and if they have an attorney, their attorney's fees if they are the prevailing party, as well as costs if they're the prevailing party. What the tenant is looking for, their day in court, they want to be heard. They want to let a third party hear their side of the story. As we talked about, evictions are creatures of statute, meaning that you have to follow everything procedurally accurately. One mistake, the tenant can say, Your Honor, they should not be allowed to evict me because they didn't do it right. They want to be able to continue to live there, or if that's not possible, to get time to find somewhere else to live. So we've seen a lot of different things come forth during this pandemic, such as uncooperative landlords, wanting to just circumvent the protections under the state law, federal law now, and try to intimidate tenants and harass them out of their housing simply because they can't pay rent, for example, or because now they just want the property back and they know it's because they can't pay rent, but they just want to harass the tenant until the tenant gets tired and then decides to leave. The right to a habitable unit, because of the shelter in place orders, we've had a lot of tenants complain about habitability issues that have exacerbated during the pandemic. They were there before, but because now everybody's been required to shelter in place to some extent at the beginning, and then currently, to the extent possible, it's been hard for our clients and our tenants that had inhabitable units to have that come forth. The right to exercise their rights under the law without retaliation. So if they had, you know, a mouse problem, not having to worry about the landlord evicting them, or, you know, if they feel that they've been overcharged, not feeling that the landlord will threaten to call immigration on them if they are just asserting their rights as tenants. And then a right to be free from discrimination in the terms and conditions of the rental. We've seen a number of discrimination cases come forth. It's important that tenants understand that they have rights. Even people who are renting from the master tenant, so subtenants, they have rights. The Department of Fair Employment and Housing, I'll make sure I put their information in the chat. They're an excellent resource for people to complain and file complaints of discrimination on the basis of a protected class. Such as disability, race, gender, immigration status, military or veteran status, hair texture, color. There's a number of protections that we have, sexual orientation. I'm just giving you examples of the type of discrimination that we have seen during this pandemic come forth previously and then exacerbated because of this pandemic. So,
I'm so sorry.
That's
We're
okay.
going to have to move on to the
Oh, sorry about
next
that.
speaker. I'm so
Sorry about
sorry. This is such great information, but we only have about 30 more minutes and we have 3 more speakers.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
No, it's okay.
So we'll make sure
Wait,
to share our slides.
I'm the next speaker and I yield my time.
Oh, is it a lot of the same information?
It's all the same information. The only thing if we could talk about at the end, just about our clinics that we're collaborating on. So
Okay.
I think this is so useful and so detailed that if we keep going this way, I think it'll be the most useful.
Thank you, Amy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Amy. Okay.
Maybe,
So,
maybe about 5 more minutes then, and then we'll have Amy just do her piece then.
okay, no problem.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'll be brief there. So we've seen that landlords are less inclined to provide habitable premises. A lot of tenants are facing backlash from landlords. So the law requires during the entire period of the tenancy that the landlord provide a habitable place to live. And so essentially the landlord must provide a unit that is fit for human occupancy, for a human being to live in, is compliant with state and local laws that affect the tenant's health and safety. So for example, a unit must have a working plumbing, working electrical, a locking door, a locking mailbox. These are just examples. There's about 22 things that under the law that are required for a unit to be habitable in the state of California. And they also must be in compliance with provisions of the Civil Code and Health and Safety Code. So any issues with the habitability of the unit, we're asking tenants to document it in writing to the landlord. They can do it in their native language too, as well, if they don't speak English, because it can always be translated if they have to use it in a court proceeding. And then also to contact their local code enforcement agency to start an investigation. If code enforcement investigates the property and determines that a unit's uninhabitable, they can cite the landlord. And that's important because if the landlord is cited for at least 35 days or longer and the unit's not fixed, then they lose the right to collect rent under the state of California's laws. So it's important that tenants do their best to document or work with others to help document those habitability issues and concerns. And we talked about that. And so we do have a clinic that we are we've put together with Community Legal Aid Southern California in Orange County. And this slide does not talk about that, but it just gives information if people have questions related to housing or homelessness prevention and our contact information. You can learn more about the clinic through contacting our hotline, as well as visiting the Community Legal Aid website. We run that clinic.
So, we have the website. Yeah. So luckily, Community Legal Aid SoCal and Public Law Center are great partners, and we get to work on a lot of projects together. And one that we put on the fast track was meeting the need for tenants in Orange County, given the housing crisis and the eviction tsunami that we are all afraid is coming, and seems the wave had started. So what we're doing with our colleagues, in addition to volunteer attorneys, is we have twice a week clinics where we assist tenants free of charge to prepare answers if they are served with an eviction with an unlawful detainer. And so what I recommend to share with your community, and I have a flyer that I can send to this group later, is to give a call to Community Legal Aid's hotline. We're actually just using one hotline, and I just put it down here. Let's see. So we're just using this hotline number to connect either with Public Law Center or with Community Legal Aid to help people get an appointment and prepare their answer and file it in time, because as Ugochi was talking about, these proceedings can happen very quickly. And we want to make sure that we are preparing answers in time so that they can be filed. And then hopefully we can also represent tenants in their eviction cases. And so it's really important, if any of the people that you serve, any of the community members you're working with, mention having received something from their landlord, even if they're not quite sure what it is, they can call our hotline, they can call PLC and get advice, because it may be that there's just a 15-day notice and we can advise on that, or it could be that they're actually served with the eviction proceedings with a summons and complaint. So it's really important to just as quickly as possible connect the tenants that you work with an attorney, because evictions were complicated before, but now they've gotten complicated to the nth degree, as you saw through the presentation, and the law is changing very quickly. It is likely there is going to be new laws, hopefully, in the new year on the federal level, but probably on the state level, there's going to be something new, because what we have right now in terms of protections was just a stopgap. And so hopefully there is going to be a new compromise that extends protections for tenants. And so I don't think I can add anything to sort of the legal basis, because we got that all covered. But most importantly is connect tenants to us. We're here, we have resources, we are giving advice, we are getting dozens of calls a day.
Thank you, Amy. So I'm wondering if you could attach the flyer as a file to the chat to see if that works.
Let me see if I can grab the flyer from our development team. I will get it and try to put it in there.
Yeah, if not, you can email it to us. Along with, there was a question in the chat for legal aid, if there's ability to include the PowerPoint as an attachment. I don't know if you are able to attach that file as well. If not, you could email it to me. I will send that out.
I'm trying to see if I can attach it.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. That was such great information, and we have more to come. Our next speaker is Martha Torres, and she's from the Fair Housing Foundation. Thank you so much for being with us today, Martha.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Good afternoon. My name is Martha Torres. Thank you so much for having us here today. I'm with the Fair Housing Foundation. We are a private nonprofit that focuses on rights and responsibilities for both landlords and tenants. Pretty much just like the two fabulous speakers before me stated, we cover a lot of the same information. We counsel anywhere between 400 to 500 residents throughout LA and Orange County on landlord-tenant issues. We do have counselors on site that are able to assist clients in English, Spanish, American Sign Language, and then we have a language line that's able to connect us to 250 different languages. Just to kind of follow up on the information that we covered earlier. We are seeing a lot of questions in regards to non-payment of rent, the evictions, the declarations, when to send those in, how to exercise their rights in that manner. A lot of the habitability issues, so we can walk them through the process in being able to request the needed repairs and then help them with the following steps in order to refer them over to code enforcement and the health department. So we do a lot of that information and assistance. We can also assist with mediation as well. We can act as a neutral party to be able to help navigate resolutions between housing providers and tenants. Another big thing that we're seeing, especially right now during the pandemic, is that housing providers may be issuing notices or improper notices right now to tenants, especially with trying to threaten them with eviction, especially if they've given declarations and notices. So making sure that tenants understand their rights and what can come about without the harassment. Another department that we have in our organization is the investigation of housing discrimination complaints. We have seen an uprise in discrimination allegations as far as sexual harassment comes, especially in situations where individuals have had to defer their rent during the pandemic. And as a result of that, the housing provider sexually harasses individuals or makes unwarranted demands in order to forgive rent and so forth. So we've seen issues such as that. We've also had an increase in reasonable accommodation cases. In the situation where individuals are being either denied housing because of a disability, reasonable accommodations if individuals need to have repairs done in the unit, or inspections if the tenant has a disability and does not want individuals to come inside their unit, we can help assist with that. Another thing that we've also seen is allegations of discrimination based on the perception. So for example, first responders or essential workers who have been working during this time and exposed a little bit more to the public than others, if the housing provider all of a sudden sees them as a problem tenant and so forth, we've been able to assist those clients as well. Our offices are closed at this time to the public, but we are open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. We're able to assist clients via telephone. I did attach a flyer in the chat box. We have launched our workshops virtually. So every Tuesday at 1:30, we have the Fair Housing Workshop, which talks about rights and responsibilities, touches about the protected classes, a little bit of the moratoriums put in place. On Wednesdays, we have appointments available for individuals who want to set an appointment either via Zoom or via telephone to speak to the counselor on a one-on-one basis. And then on Thursdays, we offer the Spanish virtual workshop as well. So we definitely have adapted to provide these workshops and making sure that individuals have access to the information in this time that's so delicate to everybody. And there's so much confusion and changes going on. So if you have any questions, I'll be here to cover them throughout the chat or even after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martha. Yeah, we did have some questions put in, but I was going to hold on to those till all four speakers, and then maybe all four speakers can help address those questions together.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and our last speaker around this issue is Kelly Fritzl from the City of Fullerton's Housing Department. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Oh, thank you, and good afternoon. Thank you for letting me speak today. The city has been quite excited. We've launched an emergency rental assistance program up to $1,000 for each eligible family. We've already submitted about 140 checks to landlords. So we still have about 160 that we have capable of helping. The city also has launched a utility rebate program to help families pay for the utilities that they're behind in payment. So we're here to try to help. I've put my email out. So if you have any families that have any issues, we also are working with Pathways of Hope on tenant-based rental assistance programs. So we're trying to see if we can use our federal money and our state money to help our most needy residents.
And Kelly, for those types of support, is it best for them to get directly in contact with you, the organization, or can the organization send your information out to some of their clients?
Feel free to send my information out and I'll just make sure everybody that needs to see it sees it.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so Lionel, do you want to go ahead and ask some of these questions that you were bringing up to our speakers? I know you messaged me.
Yeah. How's it going, everyone? Like that right there.
There you are.
Al Talavera, one of the board members with the collaborative. So I just wanted to kind of ask all the different panelists some questions. So how can the Fullerton Collaborative and members help support and get this information out to those that most need it? So from like Ugochi, Amy, Martha, and Kelly, how can we help, right, the Fullerton Collaborative, and then also how can our members help to pass this information out to those that most need it?
Well, this is Amy. I think the first thing I would start with is to let them know let people know that they have rights and that they can't be forced from their home without the legal process. And so it's really important that if they are experiencing landlord intimidation, if they are experiencing something we call an illegal lockout, where the landlord is trying to kick them out of the home without any kind of legal proceeding, to know they have rights and that shouldn't be happening. And so I think the first thing is to know they have protections. And the second thing is to connect them up with us, to give them legal advice, to let them know what their protections are. And I did have the flyers in English and Spanish. I'm sorry we don't have it translated into Vietnamese yet. That is on our horizon. So that you can hand out these flyers, tell people to call our hotline, and let people know that what their rent obligation is as of March through August, because you guys now know that, and what their obligation for rent is through September through January, because that's really important. If people can scrape that 25% together, that's a really big deal. And so those are sort of two basic things to let them know. But again, most important is that they have rights and they need to talk to an attorney. And they got a bunch of free attorneys in Orange County who at the minimum will be giving advice.
Perfect. Thank you. So you kind of answered two questions there because we're going to direct a lot of them, like you said, to legal aid. Another question that we have is, so how can we and how can Fullerton Collaborative members collaborate and support those that most are being challenged through these difficult times? So what can we do as these other nonprofits and collaborate with others to help support those that are being more impacted?
I think to follow up with what Amy was saying, because I agreed with everything that she stated in response to their questions. I think what this collaborative can also do is help gather documents, get the stories, get the information, particularly for those clients for whom English is either not their first language, or they might have a cognitive disability that impacts them in communicating or fully understanding what their rights are. So just kind of being their advocate to help intercede on their behalf when they're speaking with an attorney, or in addition to speaking with an attorney or an advocate who's working under the supervision of an attorney to address these issues with their landlords. We have a number of things that we can convert to templates that we've used and given to community organizers and community advocates to then use with tenants, because unfortunately there's not a dearth of people who are in need of free legal services, but we don't always have enough resources to go around. So we've created templates to help people self-advocate. And so that's another way that that this collaborative can be helpful in terms of writing those letters or helping them write those letters and starting to document the information, so that if they end up having to go to court, either on the defensive or on the affirmative side, they have their documents in place.
Yeah, and I would just add to that too, you can also invite us to your community meetings. So this is great to talk to all of you providers, but I'm going to volunteer both of us, and Ugochi can tell me no. We also want to talk to the communities that you serve and in the language that you're serving. So we have colleagues who can present in Spanish, or we have colleagues who also can help present in Vietnamese. So reaching out to your community and Korean and giving these presentations, I think is important, so people hear it themselves and they can ask their own questions.
So what would be the best way, so for our members that are hearing you guys now, to get in contact with you guys to be able to present this in the future?
So in the PowerPoint, we put our, I put, this to go to you, I put my direct dial in there, and we have our network of attorneys and advocates. So we do about 4 presentations per year. And we've done a little bit more because of COVID-19, but they've all been important presentations. And so that's one way to get in contact. And then Amy put her email in the chat. So I can do the same.
Awesome, thank you. Is there any other questions, Deanna? Because I got one more, but I think it's just.
I had one, Amy.
Yeah.
Can you tell me again, like, the 2 big things you said that we needed to, like, communicate to anybody that might be facing this? You said it was the.
So I think the one is that they have rights. They can't just be forced out of their home without a court proceeding. And that means like illegally locking them out, telling people you have to go by a certain date with any court proceedings. That's not true. That you cannot be pushed out of your home without a court order, without court proceedings. And then the second part is to know what amount of rent is due for the different periods. And so between April, is it March or April? It's
March.
Between March and August, the rent, while they still have that financial obligation, it's converted into just debt, and they can't be evicted for that. And then from September 1 through January 31st, they need to pay 25%, so they can't be subject to eviction proceedings for non-payment. And the 75% will be converted into debt. And so they can't be evicted for the 75%. And so it's important to know that they have this wiggle room right now with the rent. And then the last thing is talk to a lawyer.
Got it. I just want to make sure I had that clear, because those are pretty substantial things. Those 2 big things are the 25 and the 75%.
And then make sure they submit the declaration
Yeah.
because because evictions for non-payment started on October 5th again. They were paused from April 6th until September the 1st, when the AB 3088, the emergency rule sunsetted. So tenants who want to avoid eviction through this period of November through December, we only have 1 month left, a little bit under a month left. They need to provide that declaration for each of those months from September to January, and keep a copy of the declaration.
So if a tenant had already declared earlier in the year, but it was like, say, July, and they haven't communicated again, do they need to re-communicate for every single month after that?
The law says that the landlord is not triggered until the landlord gives the 15-day court day notice to respond to the non-payment of rent. But just erring on the side of caution, we told tenants to go ahead and submit it and keep a copy. And then if their landlord then hits them again with a 15-day or gives them a 15-day court notice, to then submit it again. So twice, even though they're only legally required to do it once, it's just because some landlords won't do it. And then they'll try to move forward to evict, and then the tenant has no protection if they've given no declaration. So it's just prudent to just go ahead and submit it. And the courts, the state housingiskey.com, they have the list of declarations that are the COVID-19 declarations that are required for under AB 3088.
And that declaration is basically kind of like a letter, right? Stating that
Yes,
they've been impacted.
signed by the tenant under penalty of perjury.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you so much for
So
those details. You had one more question?
yeah, just one more. Just have you seen the increase of evictions most recently?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's happening right now as we speak.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure people were aware of that.
Yeah, the estimates, as I said earlier in the presentation, are about 1 to 2 million nationwide, and that's up from 160,000 per year. The Eviction Lab, another good resource, is tracking evictions nationwide, which provides really good data for you guys as advocates as well. Lobbying your local legislators and state legislators, because the stories are also very important. That's another way that this group can help, is to identify stories that can be used for advocacy before the legislature to explain why these protections are necessary.
Thank you so much.
That's it
Okay.
from me.
That was wonderful information. Thank you. I'm so glad. Like, that's exactly everything we needed. So thank you four amazing ladies for giving us all that. I know it was helpful for me, and I'm sure it's going to be helpful for all of us that are going to be encountering families or clients that are going to have these challenges coming up for them in the next couple months.
I do want to highlight, one important resource that Amy put in the chat, the landlordtenantdre.ca.gov. That's a guide. It's written in non-legalese for tenants, and it was just revised with a lot of these new protections. Advocates across the state, including advocates on this phone call, reviewed the DRE's guide to make sure that it was readable, digestible, and legally correct, so they wouldn't mislead tenants. So it's a really good guide. It's about 150 pages long, but it's going to be translated into the threshold languages. This is the site where people can get it now. So I would recommend people get it and read it. It's really good.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that additional information. Okay, we are going to really quickly go through our updates from our subcommittees. I think we could start with education. Do we have anything, Barry, from our education group right now?
Hi, yeah, I just want to share that we are re-looking at the Early Developmental Index neighborhood map. This is a process we have to do maybe every 10 years. So if anyone is interested in participating in defining the neighborhoods in Fullerton that we should track, please let me know. We have a call in mid-December with the people that are doing the maps. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barry. And Bev Berryman, do we have something from Next Gen?
Yes,
I'm not sure if Christian was here.
Yeah, he was here. He had to just log off. He had another engagement he had to do. We met on November the 3rd. We have been meeting once a month from 10 to 11 on the first Tuesday of each month to bring everyone together to share resources, to talk about challenges, to kind of see where everyone's at. We actually, it seems like this is the popular day for Community Legal Aid of Southern California. We actually had Marlena Davis come and speak to us and talk about the different workshops that they can offer to our community. As far as I know that for us at Crittenton, we're bringing in the group to do a seminar on fraud and credit to our teens, our foster teens, so that they will understand what how important their credit is, and to make sure that they understand how it works. And they would be willing to go into other organizations and do workshops on just an array of things that they offer. As you can see, their breadth is very, very wide. They do a lot of things for people. They do great work. So we had Marlena come and speak on that. We shared some other things. We are going dark in December, but we will be going again on January 5th from 10 to 11. So if anyone wants to join us, let us know and we will send you the Zoom link. And so I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bev. And next we have Peter with our health and wellness, our Move More, Eat Healthy initiative.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Peter with St. Jude Medical Center. So during this time, I did want to bring attention to the project that the Move More Eat Healthy Subcommittee is currently working on. So we're actually working on a project entitled the Hidden Treasures Project. And so this effort's actually a collaborative effort taking place across all of Northern Orange County, included not only Fullerton, but also Placentia, Buena Park, and La Habra. And what we're doing is we've actually collaborated with Cal State Fullerton's journalism team called The Insider, the city of Fullerton, and the collaborative with Debbie. And so what we're doing is we're actually developing videos for The Insider, 10 to 15 minutes long, that are actually focusing on highlighting a hidden treasure throughout the 4 cities. And so for Fullerton, we're working with Ricardo and Corey from the Fullerton Community Center to select a specific area that's actually showcasing a Move More Eat Healthy themed effort during the pandemic. Of course, during the pandemic, the activities that are out there for us to go out and do are limited. And so with this, we're hoping to attract much more people and also offer something for them to do. And also it's important to note that the 4 cities, including Fullerton, are also all HEAL cities, which means that specific policy and health and wellness efforts have been approved and confirmed, which is why we thought this would be a great project to emphasize our efforts in. But that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. I also want to just add our next meeting. We are actually moving the meeting since we normally meet on the 4th Wednesday of each month. We have some holidays coming up. So our next meeting is going to be on December 2nd at 10 o'clock. It'll be a virtual meeting. So if you want to come and join us and learn more about it, we'll actually like to invite you to join us and as our discussion of working together and making the city of Fullerton healthy. I also wanted to shout out to Peter. You're doing such an amazing job and has actually worked with his team, and they're doing a holiday home workout challenge. You want to just, I know you put it in the chat, but you want to just give us some information about that?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I had enough time for that, but yeah, so at the beginning of November, we launched our holiday home workout challenge. And so with this challenge, since the pandemic has resulted in a 30 to 60% reduction in physical activity global wide, more specifically, those stats are for the US. And so we've focused our efforts on promoting physical activity. And so with this challenge, we're asking community members to take selfies, take videos of themselves engaging in physical activity. And by taking these pictures and using the hashtag holiday home workout challenge and adding Move More Eat Healthy through Instagram, they're actually entering into a raffle to win either first place receives a $150 gift card prize, second place a $100 gift card prize, and third place a $50 gift card prize. And so depending quantitatively, the person who actually creates the most posts will win that gift card. And so it has to be through Instagram, and they have to use the hashtag and at us. So that makes it competitive for everyone. Hopefully we get a lot of participation.
Yes, and it's adults and children. So we encourage, and maybe within your organization, having challenges, you posting something and then having someone else post something and getting the word out to really make an impact in the city. So I know Peter put that challenge in the chat as well. So thank you, Peter.
Yeah, thank you. And we're looking forward to everyone's posts. So it's open to everyone. So we want to see those posts.
All right, so we're going to go ahead. We have 3 minutes to spare. Thank you, Leanna, and thank you, panel. I'm not seeing any additional questions on Facebook or on the chat right now for the panelists. So as we're going through, I put the link for the latest What's Happening Fullerton. A lot of the content and some of the flyers were posted in there. Please feel free, you can share them with your contacts. And we also want to just do a shout out to some of those organizations with their things that's happening in the holiday. And Zoo posted about the Gianeschi Center, the G3X conversation with Ken Wilcox, and that link is in the chat. It's a great opportunity, and along with scholarships that are available for leadership fellows. So please look at that, a link within the chat. And also the virtual resources that Martha posted for us, and the information around that. All the Arts Foundation shares what they're doing about keeping arts alive in the city of Fullerton. And they have a flyer that they have posted. All the Arts Foundation is grateful for a grant that they received from the county District 4 and the Rotary Club. So they're matching supplies for the students. So we invite them all just to visit those videos and see those videos as well. And
Thank you.
You're welcome. And our monthly, Father Dennis shared his monthly interfaith prayer service for the homeless deceased. 32 individuals died in the county, and one of them was in Fullerton. So that will be on Tuesday, November 10th, so tomorrow as well. All right. I think that's all that I'm seeing in the chat. Leanna, do you have anything to add as well?
No, just always, if you know anybody that today was, I think, a great example of, us being able to, provide resources for organizations. And so if you know of any types of conversations like the ones we had today that you would like us to do a panel on like we did today, please message us and let us know. And also, if you know anybody in the community or other organizations that could use the type of support that we're lending like today, please give them our information so we can invite them to become members. And that's
Thank
about
you, everyone. Yes, thank you, everyone. Wish you well, be well. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.